Welcome to a world where digital currency reigns supreme. Today we delve into the heart of Bitcoin, the UTXO system. In this vast ocean of digital transactions, UTXO, or Unspent Transaction Output, is a lighthouse guiding our way. It's not just a mouthful of technical jargon, but the fundamental element that ensures the integrity and security of Bitcoin transactions. Imagine your Bitcoin wallet as a piggy bank filled with coins of different denominations. UTXO is essentially these coins, the leftover change that remains unspent from your previous transactions. They are the building blocks that come together to make up your total Bitcoin balance. This system, unique to Bitcoin, is what makes every transaction traceable, preventing double spending and maintaining the sanctity of the blockchain. Intriguing, isn't it? Ready to unravel the intricacies of the UTXO system? Let's dive in. Imagine you're at a cafe. You pay for a $5 coffee with a $10 bill. The cashier doesn't have change, so he gives you two $2 coins and a $1 coin. This is similar to how the UTXO system works. Let's delve a bit deeper into this. Bitcoin transactions work very much like cash transactions in real life. When you hand over a $10 bill to pay for something that costs $5, you don't get the same $10 bill back with $5 somehow deducted from it. Rather, you get a new output, which in this case is your change in the form of coins. The same principle applies to Bitcoin transactions. Every transaction consists of inputs and outputs. The inputs are the Bitcoins you're spending, and the outputs are where those Bitcoins are going. Think of the inputs as your $10 bill and the outputs as the coffee you're buying and the change you're receiving. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you transact with Bitcoin, you must use up all the inputs. This might sound strange, but remember our cafe scenario. It's as if you're obligated to spend the whole $10 bill, but don't worry, Bitcoin has a clever way of dealing with this. You see, the Bitcoin network doesn't give change like a cashier does. Instead, it creates a new output for your change. Let's say you want to send 3 Bitcoins to a friend, but you only have a UTXO of 5 Bitcoins. You can't just deduct 3 Bitcoins from your UTXO and be left with 2. Instead, you'd use up the entire 5 Bitcoin UTXO as an input, create a 3 Bitcoin output to your friend, and create a new 2 Bitcoin UTXO as your change. So, in essence, the Bitcoin transaction system is a lot like a cash transaction. It uses inputs and outputs instead of deducting amounts from a balance. This is a fundamental concept that is central to understanding how Bitcoin and many other cryptocurrencies operate. Just like that cafe scenario, Bitcoin doesn't give change. Instead, it creates new outputs for every transaction. So how does UTXO fit into the grand scheme of Bitcoin transactions? Well, to understand this, let's imagine Bitcoin as a massive jigsaw puzzle, where each piece is a UTXO, an unspent transaction output. And every time a transaction occurs, these puzzle pieces are moved around, fitting into new spots. In essence, UTXOs are the lifeblood of Bitcoin transactions. They're not just numbers on a screen, but tangible pieces of Bitcoin that you send or receive whenever a transaction takes place. When you're sending Bitcoins, you're not pulling them out of a virtual wallet, you're actually sending these UTXOs. Now let's delve a bit deeper. The interesting thing about UTXOs is that they can only be spent as a whole. Imagine you're at a coffee shop that doesn't give change. If you only have a $20 bill and your coffee costs $5, you'd have to give the whole 20. But don't worry, you're not losing $15. In the Bitcoin world, a new UTXO is created as change. So in our coffee scenario, you'd get a new $15 UTXO back. This change concept can be a bit tricky, but it's crucial to understanding Bitcoin transactions. When you send Bitcoins, your wallet automatically selects UTXOs that add up to at least the amount you want to send. It then sends the entire UTXOs and creates new ones for any change that needs to be returned to you. So you see, UTXOs are not just pieces of a puzzle, they're the very mechanism that powers Bitcoin transactions. They're the indivisible atoms that make up the Bitcoin universe, each carrying a unique history of transactions. To sum up, UTXOs are the fundamental units of Bitcoin transactions. They're the pieces of Bitcoin that are sent, received, and returned as change in every transaction. And the system of tracking these UTXOs is what keeps the Bitcoin network secure and reliable. Remember, UTXOs are indivisible. They're the DNA of every Bitcoin transaction. And just as DNA shapes life, UTXOs shape the world of Bitcoin. The UTXO model isn't perfect, but it has its perks. Just like everything in life, the Unspent Transaction Output, or UTXO model of Bitcoin, has its own set of advantages and disadvantages. Today we're diving into both sides of the coin to help you understand why UTXO is such a significant aspect of the Bitcoin network. Let's begin with the perks. One of the key advantages of the UTXO model is the increased privacy it offers. Each transaction generates new UTXOs, making it harder to track the flow of coins. It's like leaving a party without telling anyone where you're going next. A bit of a mystery, isn't it? The UTXO model also allows for parallel processing. This means multiple transactions can be processed at the same time, speeding up the overall transaction process. Imagine having multiple checkout lanes in a supermarket. You don't have to wait for the person ahead of you to finish. You just choose another lane. That's parallel processing for you. But as they say, every rose has its thorns. The UTXO model is no exception. One of the most significant disadvantages is the scalability issue. The size of the UTXO database can become a problem as it continues to grow with each transaction. It's like having a closet full of clothes, but the closet keeps getting smaller. Additionally, managing UTXOs can be complex. It's not as simple as just spend and forget. The UTXO model requires a more hands-on approach, keeping track of which outputs have been spent and which haven't. Imagine juggling a dozen balls at once. You need to know where each one is at any given moment, or you might drop them all. So it's clear that the UTXO model has its own set of challenges and benefits. It's a bit like a puzzle, with each piece playing a crucial role. Despite its potential drawbacks, the UTXO model's benefits, such as increased privacy and parallel processing, make it a valuable element of the Bitcoin network. UTXO may have its flaws, but its benefits make it a cornerstone of the Bitcoin network. And understanding this is a step closer to mastering the world of cryptocurrencies. So you're probably wondering, how does UTXO affect me as a Bitcoin user? Well, let's dive right into it. To maximize your experience and efficiency in the Bitcoin universe, it's crucial to grasp the concept of UTXO, or Unspent Transaction Output. In essence, UTXO is like your virtual change purse. Each time you make a transaction, you're not just sending Bitcoins to another address. You are actually consuming one or more UTXOs and creating new ones. Think of it like using a $20 bill to pay for something worth $15. You don't tear off a part of the bill. Instead, you hand over the whole note and get $5 back as change. Similarly, in the Bitcoin world, if you have a UTXO worth 1 Bitcoin and you want to send half a Bitcoin to someone, you don't tear the UTXO in half. Instead, you consume the whole UTXO and create 2 new ones, one for the receiver and one as your change. Now, why is this important to you? 2 words: transaction fees and privacy. Transaction fees in Bitcoin are not based on the amount of Bitcoin you're sending, but on the data size of the transaction. The more UTXOs you consume, the larger the transaction, hence the higher the fee. So, understanding and managing your UTXOs efficiently can help you lower these fees. And then there's privacy. Every time you spend a UTXO, it reveals a piece of information about your Bitcoin holdings and transaction patterns. By being mindful of which UTXOs you choose to spend, you can enhance your privacy on the network. So in conclusion, understanding UTXOs isn't just about technical know-how, it's about making your journey in the Bitcoin universe smoother, more efficient, and more private. It's about being a savvy Bitcoin user who knows the ins and outs of the system. Mastering UTXO management can help you navigate the Bitcoin network more efficiently and cost-effectively. UTXO might seem complex, but it's the backbone of every Bitcoin transaction. Let's take a moment to recap. We've demystified the Unspent Transaction Output, or UTXO, explaining how it forms the foundation of all Bitcoin transactions. We've delved into its basic mechanics, showing it's like a digital form of cash, where each piece can be used only once. We've explored how UTXO plays a pivotal role in Bitcoin transactions, ensuring security and transparency, while also highlighting some of its drawbacks, like scalability issues. We've also touched on the impact of UTXO on you, the user, emphasizing its role in determining transaction fees and change. Just remember, the Bitcoin network is like a giant, ever-changing puzzle, and UTXO is an integral piece of that puzzle. Understanding UTXO brings you one step closer to mastering the Bitcoin network. Keep exploring, keep learning, and see where this crypto journey takes you.